Quadratic expressions and equations. Difference of squares, sum of cubes, and difference of cubes. This first one, we're going to look at the difference of squares. Now, the difference of squares formula is right here. And what it states is that a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b. For this first problem, we have 25x to the 2n minus 49y to the 2n. Now, immediately I can tell that 25 is a square of a number and 49 is a square of a number. Similarly, x to the 2n is obviously a square of x to the n, and y to the 2n is a square of y to the n. So I right away know that this is a difference of squares problem. Now, 25x to the 2n, 5 squared is 25, so my a term is going to be 5. We're going to have x to the n as well as part of our a term because this is a whole term together. 49 y to the 2n. I know that 49 is the square of 7. So our b term is going to be 7 y to the n. Now we can just use our formula up top, and our answer is going to be a plus b, that's 5x to the n, plus 7y to the n, multiplied by a minus b, 5x to the n, minus 7y to the n. And then this is our answer. This one is a little easier. First of all, we have a difference of squares on groups. So this is a square product, and this is a square product, and here's our difference. What I want to do now is I want to essentially, I'm going to separate these two into two large values. So now we have our a is going to be r minus 3, and our b is going to be s minus 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do r minus 3 plus s minus 3. And then in our second bracket, we're going to have r minus 3 minus s minus 3. Now I can distribute the negative through the parentheses here on the second bracket and combine like terms. Well, first of all, let's just take care of the parentheses. So this doesn't have a negative, it's just a positive. So it's going to be r minus 3 plus s minus 3. And then in the second brackets, r minus 3. I'm going to distribute this negative, so that becomes a positive, that becomes a negative, and that becomes a positive. So then I'm left with negative s plus 3. Now we can combine like terms. We only have one r. We have two minus 3's. So that means it's going to be minus 6. And then we're going to have a plus s. Then on our second term, we're going to have 1r. We have a minus 3 and a plus 3, so that's 0. And then we have a minus s. And this is our final answer. Here we have the difference of squares again, because the square root of 81 is 9, and the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. So our a term is just going to be 9x squared. Our b term is going to be easy because we're squaring this particular parentheses. So we're left with y minus 3z as our second term, as our b. Now what we could do is we can do the same thing as we did before. We're going to take our a term, 9x squared. We're going to add y minus 3z, our b term. Then we're going to do the same thing, 9x squared. This time we're going to subtract our b term, y minus 3z. I'm going to distribute the negative throughout, and I'm going to combine like terms. So our first term, it's all positive. So I'm going to be having 9x squared plus y minus 3z. Our second term is going to be 9x squared. When you distribute the negative, you're going to change this to a positive, that to a negative, and that to a positive. So you're left with minus y and a plus 3z. That's a bad z, but that's a z. That becomes our final answer. Now this next one, it's not gonna be difference of squares. Now it's gonna be the sum of cubes. This is our sum of cubes equation. We have a cubed plus b cubed is gonna equal a plus b multiplied by a squared minus ab plus b squared. Now what are our a values in this first question? In this first question, we have u cubed plus 8v cubed. Now u cubed, obviously our a value is just going to be u. Our b value is going to be, well, what's the cube of 8? That would be 2. So our b value is going to have a 2, and then v cubed, that means our b value is going to be 2v. Now we can use our formula above. We're going to have a plus b first. So u plus 2v multiplied by a squared, which is u squared, minus a times b. U times 2v is 2uv, and our b squared, so we're going to have plus 4v squared. And this becomes our final answer. In this problem, we're going to do difference of cubes this time. So this is our difference of cubes formula. It's similar to our sum of cubes. It's just the signs are different. So let's identify what are our a value and b value. What cubed is equal to 64? Well, 4 cubed is equal to 64. So that's going to be our a value. But we also have a c cubed. So we're going to have 4c for our a value. Now, what cubed is 27? Well, that's 3 cubed is 27. Now we have a d to the 6. Well, d to the 6 is not a cube, but d squared cubed is equal to d to the 6. So we're going to have d squared cubed is equal to d to the 6th. That means our b value is going to be 3 times d squared. Now that we have our a and our b value, we can plug them back into our equation. A minus b, that means we're going to have 4c minus 3d squared multiplied by a squared, which 4c squared. 4 squared is 16 and c squared plus a times b. 4 times 3 is 12. C d squared, and our last value is b squared. Now b squared, 3d squared squared. Let's write it up here. 3d squared squared. That's going to equal 3 squared is 9. D squared squared is going to be d to the 4th. So we're left with plus 9d to the 4th. And that becomes our final answer.